Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. How's Eddie Frederick?
So glad you can join us. Only 14% herd immunity achieved in Trinidad and Tobago to date. This story takes center stage in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Wednesday, 4th August 2021. Details when we return.
Hubbard's big promotion is back. Live free for 1 year. Spend $50 or more in any Hubbard's department and receive a chance to win big prizes every month. Property or vehicle insurance for 1 year. Free internet, cable and data for 1 year. Free fuel for 1 year. Free cooking gas for 1 year. Free electricity for 1 year. Free drinks for 1 year. Extra cash account and the big free groceries for 1 year. Promotion runs from April 1st to September 30th, 2021. Live free for 1 year with Hubbard's in association with Solgas, Flow, Grenadian General Insurance, Carib Brewery, Coca-Cola, Grenada Bottling Company, Grenlec, Communal Cooperative Credit Union, Dutch Lady Milk, Promo, Danny and Supreme. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back. One economist is urging all employers and employees in Trinidad and Tobago to get vaccinated against COVID-19, as he warns that the economy cannot sustain prolonged periods of closure for much longer. Dr. Valmiki Arjon says, while the gold standard 70% herd immunity is still a ways off for Trinidad and Tobago, data shows that at least 40% herd immunity has been effective in jump-starting economies around the world. TV6's Renessa Cutting reports.
At 195,000 persons fully vaccinated to date, Trinidad and Tobago has achieved roughly 14% herd immunity. But with the virus ravaging not only lives but also livelihoods, one economist is urging the citizenry to put the hesitancy aside and get the jab.
What the data has shown so far is that once countries get to somewhere in the vicinity of 38 to 40% fully vaccinated, they can start to reopen the economy at a fairly healthy level.
But Dr. Arjun warns that many micro and small businesses will not be able to recover as a result of 2 consecutive lockdowns.
Over 60% of our tax revenues is based on taxes on income and profits. So last year we would have realized only just under 15 billion in taxes on income and profits, whereas in 2019 we got about 22 billion in taxes on income and profits, which is, of course, a healthier amount. This year, it is likely to be within the vicinity of last year's figure, if not slightly lower.
Dr. Valmiki says, however, the true impact of the virus is yet to be realized, as he notes that official unemployment figures are still not available at this time.
A survey that was done by the IDB last year, August, at the height of the pandemic in 2020, that survey would have shown that in Trinidad and Tobago alone, over approximately 68% of low-income households were affected by unemployment because of the shutdowns given the necessary steps that had to be taken because of the pandemic. So you want the private sector to be reopened. We want the private sector to be reopened.
He also points out that our economy was facing some challenges prior to COVID, and so coupled with the problems brought on by the pandemic, we could expect another major deficit this year, and quite possibly a downgraded credit rating next year.
I would anticipate the fiscal deficit for the 2021 fiscal deficit to be fairly comparable to last year's figure, so I would probably put that within the vicinity of about between $14 to $16 billion. A negative outlook means that at the time the rating was done, more than likely, if our economic circumstances do not show significant improvement next year, or we don't show that we have a plan to significantly improve the economic operations for next year, it basically means that S&P is expecting to downgrade us next year.
Renessa Cutting, TV6 News.
Meanwhile, UNC MP Rodney Charles is bashing government's vaccination plan, following the Minister of Health's announcement that the number of people turning out to get vaccinated have been on the decline. The opposition is now calling for a database and communication strategy to combat vaccine hesitancy.
On the heels of the Minister of Health's admission that the number of persons seeking vaccination has decreased by about 50% over the last week, the opposition is calling out government for what it says is a lack of planning and foresight.
Where is the plan? How many are refusing because of disinformation? Where are they getting the disinformation? And what are the counter communication strategies? What is the social media plan for promoting vaccinations? What percentage of those refusing to be vaccinated are doing so for non-legitimate medical reasons? What are the conditions, the arguments, and the medical personnel who need to be brought on board?
The opposition MP is also taking issue with the public and private sector's vaccinate to operate rhetoric, which he describes as coercion.
In fact, I saw a job advertised in Parliament yesterday, and the job insisted that persons who apply for the job must be vaccinated. Now, I think that is going too much on the side of coercion rather than on the side of persuasion. So that if they are going to force employees to take the vaccination, we feel that is a last resort and not the best initiative. I think the time has come for the business sector to work with the trade union movement, to work with the churches, to work with the NGOs, to come up with a collaborative consensus development process that will increase our vaccination rates.
Charles says it is imperative that the government come up with a plan to combat this perceived vaccine hesitancy, as time is of the essence.
Could it be that the anger shown on Dr. Rowley's face yesterday resulted from the fact that it's slowly dawning on him that he may have on his hands hundreds of thousands of soon-to-expire COVID drugs as a result of vaccine hesitancy?
Renessa Cutting, TV6 News.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
With the government of Guyana stepping up its push to get more citizens vaccinated, the Minister of Health there recently announced that all unvaccinated people wanting to visit government ministries and departments must do so by appointment. Gordon Mosley of News Source Guyana reports.
Well, in terms of the new measures, those, as you rightly said, would come out at the beginning of the month. And what we are looking at, we haven't relaxed anything. The hours would remain the same. However, there are new requirements that people would have to comply with. So you would see those in the measures when they come out.
In the latest gazetted COVID-19 health regulations, it states that any member of the public who wishes to visit a government agency or ministry shall be vaccinated. Or for those who are unvaccinated, they must now make an appointment for any in-person visit. The government maintains that vaccination is not mandatory in Guyana, but the latest move to prohibit unvaccinated persons from visiting government agencies or ministries without an appointment could be seen as a push to force persons to get vaccinated. The new regulation goes into effect from Sunday. It is unclear what systems the government agencies will employ to deal with the new regulation. Checks with a number of government agencies today reveal that many of them were unaware of the change. The government has not indicated how it intends to deal with government workers who are unvaccinated, since it is believed that more than 50% of the employees within the government sector remain unvaccinated. More than 50% of Guyana's adult population has now received the first dose of one of the COVID-19 vaccines, Just over 30% of the adult population is fully vaccinated against COVID. When we come back, you're going to hear about some new rules when it comes to unvaccinated persons in Guyana.
Meanwhile, Gordon Mosley tells us again in the newly updated COVID-19 regulations, it is now mandated that patrons visiting restaurants prove that they have been vaccinated against COVID-19.
According to the guidelines issued today and taking effect from Sunday, patrons of restaurants will now have to walk with their ID cards and their vaccination cards to gain access to the services of a restaurant. The Ministry of Health considers a person vaccinated once that person was administered a dose of one of the vaccines to guard against COVID-19. Restaurants will still only be allowed limited indoor dining up to 9:30 p.m. In addition, under the updated guidelines, cinemas will be allowed to reopen their doors, but only at 40% capacity. And all of the patrons must present a vaccination card before being allowed access. Patrons of casinos and betting shops will also be required to prove that they have been vaccinated. The changes by the Ministry of Health comes at a time when more persons are being encouraged by the government to get vaccinated. The Health Ministry has indicated that there is an adequate number of first and second doses of the Sinopharm and AstraZeneca vaccines available in the country. The Sputnik vaccine is available in the first dose, but there has been a delay in the delivery of an adequate number of second dose shots for Sputnik.
Still on Guyana, this time changing tone, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly and leader of the Liberty and Justice Party, Lennox Schumann, shared his view with Nightly News on Wednesday on the plethora of no-confidence motions which have been filed before the National Assembly. HGP's Wendell Badri has the details.
While the Speaker of the National Assembly, Mansour Nadir, has called on the Attorney General of the country to offer advice on a set of no-confidence motions which have been filed at the National Assembly, seeking the removal of 2 government ministers from office, as well as the leader of the opposition, Lennox Schumann told Nightly News, when asked what his position was on the motions, that he would have to listen to the debates in the Assembly before he decides on which way to vote.
I think that is something I would have to sit down and listen to their debating points, listen to what substance they present in Parliament before I make that decision.
At the beginning of July, the leader of the opposition, Joseph Harmon, filed 2 motions with the Clerk of the National Assembly, Sherlock Isaacs, seeking the removal of the Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, as well as the Minister of Home Affairs, Robeson Ben, as Ministers of Government. Less than 3 days later, the Prime Minister, Brigadier Retired Mark Phillips, filed a motion of no confidence against the leader of the opposition, Joseph Harmon, seeking his removal from that position. The motion seeking Dr. Frank Anthony's removal from office was premised on a scandal in which the government became embroiled surrounding the overpayment for several doses of the Sputnik V vaccine, which was procured via a sheikh of Dubai, as well as what the parliamentary opposition deems as the minister's and his government's inability to treat with the COVID-19 pandemic in the face of increasing infections and deaths almost daily. The parliamentary opposition also laments the Minister of Home Affairs' ineptitude to treat with increasing criminal activities, as well as another scandal surrounding a so-called regional security team, which has been allegedly assembled by the government of the day to treat with crime throughout the regions of the country. This the opposition labelled as a return to the dark days when extrajudicial killings took place in the country, as well as unconstitutional, citing that the police force is the constitutional body mandated to deal with criminal activities. Meanwhile, the government of the day shot back at the leader of the opposition with the filing of a no-confidence motion against him, citing his inability to serve in that capacity. At least 2 opposition members, Roysdale Ford and Annette Ferguson, have rubbished the move by the government, while Ford pointed to Article 184.3 of the Constitution, which speaks to the process by which the leader of the opposition is to be removed from that position. Ferguson also mentioned that the successful passage of those motions is not necessarily the main idea behind their filing.
Badri, it is 31 of us minus 1, which is the opposition leader. So it's 30 of us. And I can safely say, and I speak here knowingly, that the 31 of us, myself and my other colleagues, we have full confidence in the leader of the opposition.
The National Assembly is expected to convene on Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021, while the Speaker has proffered that the legal advice on those motions are expected sometime this weekend. Wendell Badri for the HGB Nightly News.
Did you know that your friends and family can now shop at the Food Fair from anywhere in the world, and you can receive here in Grenada? The Food Fair and GrenadaMarket.com now make it possible through secure online shopping and personalized customer service. Simply send your loved ones a list of your preferred items or let them fill an online basket, and the items will be available for pickup or delivery. Visit GrenadaMarket.com or thefoodfair.gd today for more details. The new norm. Spread the news.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.